Welcome back with a smiling face. Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. The Ring of Destiny. Episode 6. Chapter 116. Palace Master, where are you going? I'll take you. Lin Tianhu asked. Going to Xian Hezhuang for dinner, just in time for you to send me there. In this way, David doesn't have to run over by himself. After all, there is a lack of spiritual energy, and it is not easy to cultivate a little spiritual energy. Go to Xian Hezhuang for dinner. Lin Tianhu was stunned. Palace Master, that is the property of the Along gang. You heard that Feng Sihai, be careful, they will retaliate. David didn't expect this Xian and Zhuang to be the property of the Along gang, but David was not afraid, and said lightly, just have a casual meal, nothing will happen. If they really want revenge, then if something happens it will be the Along gang. Lin Tianhu was right when he thought about it. With David's strength, even Feng Sihai, the leader of the Along gang, was no match, and the little fish and shrimp below were even less worth mentioning. Lin Tianhu opened the car door, invited David to get in the car, and kicked the accelerator towards Xian and Zhuang. On the road, Kui Ziwen was driving and humming a ditty. Not to mention how happy he was. Seeing David deflated, he was very happy. But at this moment, a car suddenly brushed past his car at an extremely fast speed. Damn, why the H3LL are you driving, rushing to get reincarnated? When Kui Ziwen finished scolding, he saw that it turned out to be a Bentley, and he was so frightened that he hurriedly shut his mouth. People who could drive a Bentley in Horndal would definitely not be ordinary people. If this was provoked, he would be out of luck. Just as David and the others were on their way to Xian Hezhuang, in a luxurious office of Xian Hezhuang, a middle-aged man with a beard was sitting on an office chair. The middle-aged man has a scar at the corner of his eye, and he is trimming a cigar in his hand. Behind the middle-aged man are four big men with their heads held high and their faces grim. This middle-aged man is Liao Fixiang, the manager of Xian Hezhuang, and also a hall owner of the Along gang. Being able to manage Xian Hezhuang also proves that this Liao Fixiang is highly valued by Feng Sihai. In front of Liao Fixiang, Xing Jun, the general manager of Xinyurihua, was sitting there. Xing Jun's expression was a little unnatural. There was a suitcase next to Xing Jun. Looking at these people in front of him, Xing Jun was very nervous. Liao Fixiang finished trimming the cigar, and after lighting it, he took a deep breath and said, "What do you have to say to me?" "Brother Xiang, I want Brother Xiang to help me get rid of someone," Xing Jun said. "Do you understand my rules?" Liao Fixiang asked lightly. I understand, here is a lot of points, and the person I want to deal with is not a political celebrity, but an ordinary person, and nothing will happen." Xing Jun said, opened the suitcase, and the white bills were exposed. Seeing a box of banknotes, Liao Fixiang raised his mouth slightly. "I see, you give me that person's information, and you won't see him in 3 days, Brother Xiang. I will invite that kid to come to Xian and Zhuang for dinner. I hope Brother Xiang can find a reason to kill him directly, otherwise I'm afraid others will suspect me." Xing Jun was afraid that Sonia would doubt himself if David suddenly disappeared, so he asked Liao Fixiang to find a reason to kill David while he was eating, so that Sonia would have no reason to doubt himself. "Let me kill Xian and Zhuang." Liao Fixiang frowned slightly. "You know that doing this will have a great impact on my business, Brother Xiang. After this is done, I can pay you 500,000, please do me a favor," Xing Jun hurriedly pleaded. "Okay, for the sake of money, I'll help you once." Liao Fixiang nodded, I'll send someone over when you have dinner. Thank you, Brother Bear, thank you Brother Bear. Seeing June thanked him again and again, turned around and walked out. Walking out of Liao Fixiang's office, seeing Jun's eyes flashed with a cold light, and the corner of his mouth raised slightly, when David is dead, I see if Sonia will refuse me. At the door of Xian Hezhuang, Lin Tianhu parked the car and opened the door to let David walk out. Palace Master, I am waiting for you here. If something happens, I can deal with it as soon as possible, Lin Tianhu said to David. David waved his hand. No, go back, Lin Tianhu nodded, got in the car and left. And just as Lin Tianhu was driving away, a red BMW approached. It was Sun Xiaomeng who was driving, and Wang Hanin was also on it. Because Sun Xiaomeng left early, she was a little earlier than others. David, did you get off that Bentley just now? Sun Xiaomeng asked David in surprise. Just now she saw David get off the Bentley, and she couldn't believe it, but when she got to David, she had to believe it. David nodded slightly. Brother David, are you sitting in a Bentley? I knew I would be sitting in a Bentley with you, but I've never sat in it before, Wang Hanin said excitedly when he saw that David really came in a Bentley. But after I finished speaking, I felt something was wrong for a moment, so I smiled apologetically at Sun Xiaomeng. Sister Xiaomeng, I didn't mean that, it's fine to take your car, it's okay. Sun Xiaomeng didn't care, she knew that Wang Hanin was not malicious. It's just that Sun Xiaomen's eyes kept looking at David, she didn't understand why David came in a Bentley. David, whose Bentley are you sitting on? Sun Xiaomeng continued to ask. A friend. David replied lightly. Do you still have friends who can afford a Bentley? This time, Sun Xiaomeng was a little uneasy. A Bentley costs several million at least. In a small city like Horindal, there are not many people who can spend several million to buy a car. Before David could answer, Kui Ziwen and the others also arrived, 7 or 8 cars parked in the parking lot, and they were all amazed when they looked at Xian and Zhuang in front of them. Tongjian, put your broken car somewhere else, don't park here, shame on us, Kui Ziwen yelled at Zhang Tongjian who just arrived. Zhang Tongjian had no choice but to drive away, while Kui Ziwen and the others pretended to be indifferent and walked towards Xian Hezhuang. As soon as I walked to the door, I saw Sun Xiaomeng and David, which shocked everyone. David? You? Kui Ziwen looked at David in disbelief, he never imagined that David would actually get there sooner than him. I said it will definitely be faster than you. David looked at Kui Ziwen like that, and the corner of his mouth raised. Others also looked at David and sighed. David, did you fly here? Did you take a shortcut? How could it be so fast? It's really evil, when did he get in front of us? Everyone looked at David in disbelief and asked. Brother David came here in a Bentley, Wang Hanin said proudly for David. When he heard that David came in a Bentley, everyone didn't believe it, and Kui Ziwen also snorted coldly, he is also worthy of a Bentley, I don't think he even knows what a Bentley looks like, he must be taking a taxi, super. Come over here, pretending to be the Bentley you're sitting on. Brother David is really sitting on a Bentley. Sister Xiaomeng and I both saw it, seeing that he didn't believe anyone, Wang Hanin explained anxiously. On the other hand, David looked indifferent and didn't say anything. Believe it or not, David didn't need to explain anything. Seeing that Wang Hanin said that Sun Xiaomeng also saw it, everyone turned their attention to Sun Xiaomeng, and Kui Ziwen asked, Xiaomeng, is it true? David didn't really come by Bentley, right? Sun Xiaomeng nodded, I saw him get off the Bentley. Seeing that Sun Xiaomeng said this, everyone had to believe it, and Kui Zaiwan also remembered that he was overtaken by a Bentley on the road just now. David, you wouldn't run in front of me just to pretend to be compulsive, would you deliberately call a Bentley? It's going to cost a lot of money, so what? Kui Zaiwan said with a look of disdain. That expression is, even if you come by Bentley, even if you arrive before me, I still look down on you. That Bentley is not a special car driven by Brother David, but a friend of Brother David. Wang Hanin tried her best to defend David. She didn't want David to be looked down upon by these people. Humph, will he have friends who buy Bentleys? Don't be so naive, who would believe him except you? Kui Zaiwan snorted coldly, and then asked the crowd, do you believe it? I don't believe it. Fish look for fish and shrimp for shrimp. David looks so poor, how could he have friends who buy Bentleys? Pretend, who wouldn't say, I also said that a friend of mine bought a private jet. Does this count as a failure of pretending? Even if you don't look at your worth, you dare to say that you have a friend who buys a Bentley. Everyone mocked David with disdain. Even Sun Xiaomeng didn't believe that the one who drove the Bentley just now was David's friend, only Wang Hanin believed in David. Seeing that David didn't say a word, he thought it was David's guilty conscience. Kui Zaiwan said cheerfully, let's go in quickly, Mr. Singh is waiting, I'll put the ugly words up front, who dares to provoke Mr. Singh today? Glad, I made you look good, everyone nodded again and again. They didn't even dare to provoke Kui Zaiwan, let alone Sing Jun. Kui Zaiwan led the crowd to the private room that Sing Jun said. The crowd was finishing their clothes outside, taking deep breaths, trying to adjust their state before going in. But just when everyone was adjusting their state, David pushed open the door of the private room and walked in, which made Kui Zaiwan suddenly angry. When everyone followed up, they were relieved to see that Sing Jun was not in the private room. David, you are crazy, how can you just push the door and enter? Fortunately, Mr. Singh is not here, otherwise he will definitely be angry. Kui Zaiwan roared at David. Others also accused David one after another, for fear that David's behavior would implicate them too. Looking at Kui Zaiwan and everyone's faces, David sneered and said, why? If you don't push the door directly, you have to worship and kowtow 3 times outside? How many years have you been since the Qing dynasty? Your ancestors are all slaves. David's words suddenly made everyone's face become extremely ugly, and that Kui Zaiwan was even more angry and flushed. David, what are you so awesome? If you are so awesome, don't work if you have the skills, don't be a slave, what are you pretending to be here? I can get you out of here with a single word. Kui Zaiwan roared loudly. Everyone also added bad words to David and asked Kui Zaiwan to fire David. Even Sun Xiaomeng stared at David with an ugly face. David's way of scolding his mother after eating milk made her very disgusted. Only Wang Hanin explained for David, Brother David didn't mean that, Manager Kui, don't be angry, Wang Hanin is very afraid that David will lose his job. After all, it is not easy to find a good job like this, and the benefits are also good. You haven't the ability to fire me yet, David looked at Kui Zaiwan and said with disdain. David knew that Sing Jun would not agree with Kui Zaiwan to fire him. Since Sing Jun kept himself in the company, he would definitely not fire him just like that. What did you say? I'm the manager of the sales department. I have the final say in the entire sales department. I can't fire you as a small employee. What if you were left by Mr. Singh? I can treat you as well. Fired, I'm the biggest in the sales department, Kui Zaiwan yelled at David angrily. But as soon as the voice fell, the private room door was pushed open, and Sing Jun walked straight in. Seeing Sing Jun coming, Kui Ziwen was so frightened that a cold sweat broke out instantly. The words he just said were so outrageous that he didn't even pay attention to Xing Jun. Seeing President Xing, Kui Ziwen trembled, and hurriedly pulled out the chair on the main seat for Xing Jun. President Xing, you sit. Xing Jun sat down slowly, then raised his head slightly to look at Kui Ziwen and said, Manager Kui, I really want to hear you say that you are the biggest in the sales department. Kui Ziwen hurriedly explained, Mr. Xing, I was just talking nonsense, who doesn't know that you are the biggest in the company? Then David didn't understand the rules, and he provoked me. I just taught him a lesson. You know who is the biggest? The corner of Xing Jun's mouth raised slightly, and then he waved his hand, sit down. With Xing Jun's permission, everyone dared to take a seat, but David sat directly beside Xing Jun. Now that David knows Xing Jun's intentions, he will meet Xing Jun well and see what means he has. Seeing David sitting beside Xing Jun, Kui Ziwen suddenly shouted, David, do you know who you are? Is that seat for you? You must know that this kind of thing is almost rare. Everyone wants to sit next to Xing Jun, and then follow Xing Jun to draw in some feelings. Now David is sitting directly next to Xing Jun, which makes Kui Ziwen very dissatisfied. Everyone also looked at David angrily. As a newcomer in the sales department, David was not qualified to sit next to the boss to eat. Even the old people like them were not nearly there. The positions on the left and right of Xing Jun must be given to Kui Ziwen and Sun Xiaomeng. What? Is it still eligible to sit? Is it written on the stool that I can't sit? David said with a cold smile. David, you don't know whether it's true or false. I think you're doing it on purpose. You want to follow Mr. Xing, right? You're just a new salesman. What are you doing? That position is for Manager Kui. Stay. Wang Lanlin also angrily rebuked David. Everyone also shouted at David, saying that he just wanted to curry favor with the general manager. In such a good position, these old employees can't take a turn. Why let David sit? No one is balanced in everyone's heart, so they accuse David. David glanced at everyone, his face full of disdain. Don't force your ideas on me. I can't control who you want to add, but I can sit wherever I want, and you can't control me. David went to Xing Jun's side, and then smiled lightly. General Manager Xing, I'm sitting here, don't I wrong your identity? David looked at Xing Jun with a bit of provocation in his eyes. This Xing Jun dared to be smart to himself, and David certainly wouldn't be accustomed to him. Seeing David speak with Xing Jun in such a tone, this scared Kui Ziwen and others. Even Wang Hanin broke a cold sweat for David. David, why are you talking to President Xing? Just like you dare to follow Mr. Xing, you have to face. David, don't think that Mr. Xing is approachable, you have to go ahead and get up quickly, everyone yelled at David. And Kui Ziwen was in a cold sweat, and he explained to Xing Jun nervously, Mr. Xing, this kid has something wrong with his brain, don't be angry. Xing Jun listened to everyone's accusations and scoldings against David, the corners of his mouth raised slightly, and he said with a faint smile, it's okay, let him sit here. After Xing Jun finished speaking, he turned his head to look at David, and said with a bit of deepness in his eyes, young people should have a temper, but their temper is too hard and it is easy to break. Thank you, General Manager Xing, for reminding me. I'm a person who would rather bend than bend. David also had a meaningful smile on his face. Xing Jun just smiled and said nothing, because after a while, he knew whether David would bend. David occupied a position. Kui Ziwen could only helplessly sit to the left of Xing Jun, while Sun Xiaomeng sat next to Kui Ziwen. Sun Xiaoman's eyes have been staring at David with disgust. If it wasn't for David, that position would be hers. If Xing Jun was happy to serve him today, maybe Kui Ziwen could be transferred to the purchasing department, and he could be the same. What about the sales manager? Now Sun Xiaomang regrets bringing David into the company. If he knew this earlier, he would not agree to introduce David to death. Isn't this causing trouble for himself? David, if it wasn't for Mr. Xing, would you be able to join the company? Can you sit here and eat? I tell you, just like you, don't even think about being able to eat in Xian and Zhuang in your life, garbage, Kui Ziwen insulted David with disdain. Now is the time to show loyalty to Xing Jun, of course Kui Ziwen will not miss such a good opportunity. Snapped. However, as soon as Kui Ziwen's words landed, he was slapped directly in the face. This slap shocked everyone in an instant. Everyone looked at Kui Ziwen in a daze, and Kui Ziwen himself widened his eyes and looked at David in disbelief. He didn't expect that David would dare to do something to him. And Xing Jun, who was sitting in the middle, frowned slightly. David hit Kui Ziwen directly in front of him. He didn't take himself seriously at all. This slap is just to teach you a lesson. I won't move you, just for Uncle Sun's sake. If you dare to be disrespectful to me, I will screw your head off. David glanced at Kui Ziwen coldly, with a strong killing intent in his eyes. Just at this sight, Kui Ziwen was so frightened that he trembled slightly, his whole body seemed to fall into an ice cave. David, you're crazy, why are you fighting Ziwen? When Sun Xiaomang saw that David actually attacked Kui Ziwen, she immediately roared at David. David, you dare to beat Manager Kui, I think you don't want to do it. It's the opposite, it's just the opposite. A small salesperson who dares to call a sales manager must be fired. Everyone spoke on behalf of Kui Ziwen and fawned on Kui Ziwen. David, you kneel down and apologize to Manager Kui. Maybe he can forgive you and let you stay in the company, or you will definitely be fired. Wang Lanlin pointed at David and said sharply. Brother David, Wang Hanin looked at David, a little overwhelmed. She did not expect David to suddenly attack Kui Ziwen. Fire me! David's mouth raised slightly, just relying on him, he is not qualified to fire me. The dignified manager Xing is here, how can he be a sales manager? David, I'm your ancestor, I'm going to kill you. After being shocked for a moment, Kui Ziwen roared loudly. He didn't dare to be so afraid at this time, and he had to show fearlessness, otherwise he would have no place in the hearts of employees as a sales manager. Snapped. Just as Kui Ziwen's words fell, when he was about to rush to David, David slapped him again. David's speed was so fast that Kui Ziwen didn't have time to dodge. However, when David was beating Kui Ziwen, he looked at Xing Jun with a provocative look in his eyes. It's just that Xing Jun's face was gloomy and motionless. After being slapped twice in a row, Kui Ziwen was going to be mad, and said to David with anger, David, I snapped. Just as Kui Ziwen opened his mouth, he was slapped again by David. David snapped. I snapped. In the end, as long as Kui Ziwen opened his mouth, David slapped him, and his whole face became a pig's head. Kui Ziwen was frightened and looked at David in horror, but he didn't dare to open his mouth. And everyone looked at David in horror, and no one dared to say anything. Then Wang Lanlin sat down with trembling all over her body, her lips trembled, and she dared not say a word again. She was afraid that David would also fight. However, everyone turned their attention to Xing Jun. As the general manager of the company, now employees beat the department manager in public. This kind of thing must be very bad. Everyone wants to see how Sing Jun handles it. But contrary to everyone's expectations, Sing Jun's face was gloomy, but he didn't say a word. The atmosphere in the entire private room became very depressed and silent. Come on, let's just say a few words less. After a few minutes of silence, Sing Jun finally spoke. Sing Jun's sudden speech made everyone feel very strange. They didn't understand that this was the case. Why did Sing Jun keep David to eat? He should be fired on the spot and let him get out. Could it be that David has something to do with Sing Jun? Impossible. The attitude of David talking to Sing Jun just now, it is obvious that the two are not like friends. Everyone was a little confused, and they really couldn't figure out where David had the courage to fight Kui Ziwan, but Sing Jun didn't care. Sun Xiaomeng kept rubbing Kui Ziwan's swollen cheeks, staring at David with anger full of eyes. Soon, several waiters came in, carrying exquisite dishes. Every dish is worth a lot of money, and it looks very appetizing. After seeing this table of dishes, everyone's eyes finally shifted from David, and every one of them was drooling. David picked up the chopsticks and took the first bite. David's actions, although everyone wanted to say something, but no one dared to speak at this time. After all, Sing Jun didn't speak, what else could they say? Everyone eat together, don't be restrained. After Sing Jun spoke, a group of people couldn't help but start to gobble up. They were just a bunch of part-time workers. How could they have eaten such good food? Looking at the delicious food in front of him, Wang Hanin's eyes were hot, but he was able to control it, and he didn't go crazy like everyone else. But this will be very disadvantageous. The food that I wanted to eat will be snatched away by others in the blink of an eye. David saw that Wang Hanin was a little embarrassed, so he started to serve Wang Hanin. Hanin, you eat more, anyway, you don't spend money, don't eat for nothing. Soon, Wang Hanin's bowl was filled by David. Looking at David like that, Sing Jun showed some disdain. He wanted to know why Sonia liked David like this. During the meal, Sing Jun was not moving his chopsticks, but kept looking at his watch, as if he was waiting for something. Brother David, I'll go to the bathroom. Wang Hanin got up and walked out of the private room. After going out for a few minutes, Wang Hanin ran back in a panic, and sat beside David with a pale face. Hanin, what's wrong? David asked. No, it's okay. Wang Hanin hurriedly shook his head. But just after Wang Hanin finished speaking, the door of the private room was suddenly kicked open, and then 4 burly men walked in. Little girl, if you bump into me, run away without apologizing to your brother. One of the big men said to Wang Hanin. I didn't mean to, I'm sorry. Wang Hanin got up in a hurry and followed several big men to apologize. When the others saw that someone suddenly broke in, they were all frightened. Only Sing Jun showed an imperceptible smile. The person he was waiting for has finally arrived. These 4 big men are the people behind Liao Fixiang, whom Sing Jun has just met. I'm sorry and it's over? You bumped into your brother, at least you have to pay your brother a drink. The big man said with a wicked smile. Then I'll give you a toast. Wang Hanin is not afraid of drinking, and she also has the capacity to drink. After pouring 2 glasses of wine, Wang Hanin gave the big man a glass. When the big man took the wine glass in Wang Hanin's hand, he deliberately touched Wang Hanin's hand, which made Wang Hanin scream in surprise, and then the wine glass fell to the ground, and the wine inside was also spilled by the big man. Damn, dare to splash me with wine. When the big man is angry, he must prepare to act. David got up and pulled Wang Hanin behind him, looked at the big man coldly and said, I apologize to you for her. The big man secretly glanced at Xing Jun. Xing Jun winked desperately, and the big man instantly understood that the person in front of him was the one Xing Jun wanted to deal with. What are you? You apologize for her? The big man reached out and grabbed David's collar, ready to take David out of the private room. Now that they know who it is, they can pull it to a hidden place and directly kill David. If David is killed here, there will be too many people. David directly grabbed the big man's wrist, twisted it slightly, and the big man let go of it in pain. I hate people grabbing my collar, just a warning this time, David said lightly. The big man looked at his red wrist, a little surprise flashed in his eyes. Seeing David dare to speak like this, Xing Jun was also a little surprised, but the more David did, the faster he would die. Boy, are you trying to get ahead? Are you capable of going out with me? The big man said to David. No problem, David said indifferently. Brother David, seeing that David was going out with those people, Wang Hanin hurriedly pulled David. Don't worry, I'll be back soon, David smiled at Wang Hanin and walked directly outside. Seeing that David followed a few big men out, Wang Hanin hurriedly wanted to catch up, but was stopped by Sun Xiaomeng. Hanin, what are you doing out? These people are very fierce. Since David dares to go out, he must be sure, Sun Xiaomeng persuaded Wang Hanin, but she wished David was beaten to death. When Xing Jun saw David being taken away, the smile on his face was even stronger, and he waved to the people who were already pale with fright and said, Everyone continue. Seeing what Xing Jun said, everyone sat back in their seats, and the atmosphere became more active. David, it's better to be killed, Kui Ziwen said fiercely. Now his face is still very painful, and he has long hated David in his heart. A group of people also agreed. No one cared about David's safety, only Wang Hanin was worried all the time. Just after the cheerful dinner in the private room, David followed the four big men to the backyard. Seeing that the number of people in the backyard was getting scarcer, the four big men directly surrounded David. David looked at the four people, and the corners of his mouth raised slightly. You have so much murderous aura, are you trying to kill me? Boy, someone bought your life. Don't blame our brothers, you can only blame your bad life. I will do it quickly, so that you will suffer less. The big man who had just been pinched by David sore his wrist said. The words fell, and the four big men took out their daggers one after another, staring at David with murderous eyes. I'm dying, can you tell me who wants to buy my life? David glanced at the daggers in the hands of the four big men, and then asked lightly. No, this is the rule. One of the big men shook his head. Since I can't, then I'll ask your boss, as David said, he was about to walk towards the manager's office upstairs. The four big men were stunned, they did not expect that David was not afraid of them at all, and there was a bit of disdain on his face. Court death, with that said, the four big men started working together, and the bright dagger stabbed towards David. David didn't even look at the four of them. With a slight wave of his palm, the four people's wrists suddenly felt smashed by something, and then the daggers in their hands fell to the ground. This time, the four people were dumbfounded, watching David walk into the building in shock, and then walked upstairs. None of them reacted just now, and they didn't even see David touching them, but the dagger in his hand fell like this, and there was a blood-red trace on everyone's wrist. It was not until David disappeared that the four big men reacted and hurriedly chased after David. At this time in the manager's office, Liao Fixian was looking out the window, holding a cigar in one hand, his brows slightly frowned. Originally, the underground forces in Horindal were divided into two. Jiuyatang and their Ilong gang were considered equal in strength. As for the other small gangs, they could be ignored. It's just that Feng Sihai, the leader of the Along gang, was injured some time ago, and all the affairs of the Along gang were handed over to Liao Fixiang. Now he does not dare to act rashly. Can't stop. Especially when Liao Fixiang saw David hurt Feng Sihai with his own eyes, Liao Fixiang was deeply shocked by David's strength. He didn't know where Lin Tianhe found such a powerful helper. However, Feng Sihai has already gone to his master, Ye Fengchun. As long as Ye Fengchun arrives, the strength of the Along gang and Jiatang will be evenly matched. Boom! Just as Liao Fixiang was looking out the window and thinking about the future of the Along gang, there was a sudden loud noise and the door of the office was kicked open. Liao Fixiang was instantly enraged, and before he turned his head, he scolded loudly, "Paralyzed, who would enter my office without knocking on the door?" But as soon as Liao Fixiang finished speaking, when he turned his head, he was stunned, and then his eyes showed horror. Because he saw David who injured Feng Sihai, standing in front of him at this time. David didn't know Liao Fixiang. After all, at Gu Wenchen's banquet, Feng Sihai brought a lot of people, but they didn't do anything. Only Feng Sihai followed David and got injured by David. "Are you the manager of this Xian and Zhuang?" David asked, looking at the shocked Liao Fixiang. Seeing that David didn't know his identity, Liao Fixiang nodded immediately and said, "Yes, I'm the manager. What's the matter with you? Just now your subordinate said that someone bought my life. I came to ask, who is going to buy my life?" David pulled up a chair and sat directly on it. "Buy your life?" Liao Fixiang frowned slightly, but then his eyes suddenly opened, and the whole person began to tremble slightly. He remembered that Xing Jun asked him to kill someone. It wouldn't be so coincidental. Then the person Xing Jun wanted to kill was the devil in front of him, right? Just when Liao Fixiang didn't know how to answer, the four big men also hurried in. "Brother Xiang, this kid has some strength. The four of us are not his opponents," so he ran up, one of the big men said to Liao Fixiang. This time, Liao Fixiang almost didn't slump on the ground. It seems that the person Xing Jun asked him to kill was really the David in front of him. Liao Fixiang regretted it, knowing that it was David, let alone 1 million, he would not dare to give him any money. Feng Sihai is so powerful, and it is not solved by David. "Mr. Chen, I really didn't know it was you. If I knew, I wouldn't dare to give me 100 courage." When Liao Fixiang saw this time, he could only apologize to David. This was considered a man who had to bow his head under the roof. "You know me?" David frowned slightly. Liao Fixiang smiled awkwardly, "I met Mr. Chen at the ancient banquet, and our leader was injured by Mr. Chen. Since you know that I hurt Feng Sihai, why didn't you seek revenge from me? Are you being so polite to me?" David was very puzzled. Jiatang and Along gang have always been at odds, and now David has injured Feng again. All over the world, it stands to reason that when the people of the Along gang met him, they were enemies. But this Liao Fixiang in front of him was polite to him and spoke very respectfully. "Mr. Chen is joking. With Mr. Chen's ability, unless I don't want to live, how can I dare to seek revenge against Mr. Chen?" Liao Fixiang said truthfully. David smiled. He didn't expect this Liao Fixiang to be quite honest. A man who can bend and stretch, can be considered a hero. "Now tell me, who wants to buy my life?" David asked. "Xing Jun, he gave me 1 million to do this." Liao Fixiang dared to hide it. He wouldn't lose his life for some rules. David smiled coldly. He had long guessed that this was what Xing Jun did. Turning around and walking out of the office, Liao Fixian realized that he was already soaked all over. Brother Xiang, is the leader really hurt by this guy? He looks too young. After David left, a big man asked in shock. Liao Fixian said with a gloomy face, "Let me tell you, until the gang leader returns, no one is allowed to provoke this evil star for me, understood?" Nodding, the four big men immediately went down to notify. In the private room at this time, Xing Jun and his people had already had a good time drinking. When he saw David being taken away, Xing Jun was very happy, and Kui Ziwen was also very happy. A general manager, a department manager, and two people are happy, so can the others be unhappy? Satisfied, Xing Jun got up and waved his hand. "I'm here today, and I have to work tomorrow. I hope your sales department will make persistent efforts." Xing Jun drank a lot because he was happy, and his face was red. Since Xing Jun announced the disbanding, no one dared to stay, so they got up and prepared to leave. "Brother David hasn't come back yet, shouldn't we wait for him?" Seeing that everyone was leaving, Wang Hanin asked anxiously. "Wang Hanin, didn't you hear what Mr. Xing said? Let's go back to rest and have a good job tomorrow. Do you want to not listen to Mr. Xing?" Kui Ziwen yelled at Wang Hanin. Wang Hanin looked nervous. She didn't dare to disobey Xing Jun, but she was worried about David's safety. "Hanin, don't worry about David, maybe this guy has already sneaked back, let's go back first," Sun Xiaomeng persuaded Wang Hanin. Seeing this, Wang Hanin can only go back and have a look first. On the other hand, Xing Jun raised the corner of his mouth slightly, and sneered in his heart, "David will never go back." But just as everyone was about to leave, the door of the private room was pushed open, and David walked in. "David!" When they saw David coming in, everyone was stunned. They thought that when David went out, he was beaten and couldn't move. What was even more surprising was Xing Jun, who had already agreed to help him get rid of David. Why would David suddenly appear again? "Brother David!" Seeing that David was back, Wang Hanin jumped up happily. "You? How did you get back?" Xing Jun asked incredulously. David smiled coldly, "The matter is resolved, of course I will come back. Doesn't General Manager Xing want me to come back?" Xing Jun looked at the playful meaning in David's eyes. For some reason, his body trembled, and he hurriedly calmed down and said, "If I have any hope, come back when you come back. David, it's not the right time for you to come back. We are already full. If you want to eat, there are some leftovers here. You can eat it, and the rest is a waste." Kui Ziwen looked at David mockingly and said. The others also laughed, and the laughter was full of ridicule towards David. "Why, your mouth doesn't hurt anymore?" David looked at Kui Ziwen and sneered. Kui Ziwen was stunned for a moment, so scared that he instinctively stepped back, covering his face with his hands. "Ziwen, ignore him, let's go." Sun Xiaomeng was also afraid that David was doing something, so he pulled Kui Ji away. Everyone also walked out of the private room, and in the end only David and Wang Hanin were left. "Brother David, if you're hungry, let's go to the food stalls, don't eat the rest of them," Wang Hanin said to David. "Aren't you full?" David looked at Wang Hanin in surprise and asked. "You were taken away just now, I was worried about you, so," Wang Hanin lowered her head, just now she was worried about David's safety, so she didn't eat much. Looking at Wang Hanin like that, David felt a little guilty, and said with a faint smile, Go to the food stall." David took Wang Hanin out. Outside Xian Hes Wang, Kui Ziwen respectfully opened the car door to Xing Jun. "Mr. Xing, get in the car." Xing Jun stepped up with one foot, but finally backed out and said, "You guys go first, I forgot there are still things to deal with." Seeing Jun wants to go up and ask Liao Fixian what is going on. If it doesn't work, he needs to get the money back. "What's the matter with General Manager Seeing? I can help you deal with it." At this time, David walked out with Wang Hanin, and said with a faint smile on his face, "David, who do you think you are? You can also handle the affairs of President Xing." Kui Ziwen snorted coldly, and then respectfully said to Xing Jun, "President Xing, if there is anything, I can help you deal with it. Some of my personal affairs, you go first." After Xing Jun finished speaking, he glanced at David and turned back to Xian Hez Wang. "David, didn't you come from Bentley? Then go now, do you also have Bentley to pick you up?" "I haven't seen Bentley yet, can you ask your friend to come and let me see?" Wang Lanlan suddenly said to David with a mocking expression. "Yes, I want to see Bentley too. I really want to know what this so-called friend David looks like. Don't be a Bentley when you come, and ride a little electric donkey when you go back." Everyone laughed at David. "Why should I let you see?" David sneered. "You're just bragging, you don't have any friends who buy Bentleys. The cost of coercion is too low now. If coercion broke the law, he would have been arrested long ago. Even if he pretends not to break the law, he has already been arrested. You forgot that David just got out of prison." Everyone sang and attacked David. They did this entirely to please Kui Ziwen. "I know that David came out of prison and was directly cuckolded. With this kind of ability, what are you bragging about in front of us?" Seeing that everyone said this, Kui Ziwen swelled up instantly, forgetting the scene of the pain in his face just now, and mocking David. David's face suddenly turned cold, and then he waved his palm. Seeing that David was about to make a move, Kui Ziwen knew he was afraid, so he hurriedly covered his face with his hands and hid behind Sun Xiaomeng. "David, what are you doing? If you dare to do it again, I will not finish with you." Sun Xiaomeng glared at David. "Brother David, forget it." Wang Hanin also held David's arm tightly. David looked at Sun Xiaomeng like that, and finally put his hand down. If he and Sun Xiaomeng are too stiff, and when Sun Fuhe talks to his parents, the parents will definitely be worried. Seeing David put down his hands, Kui Ziwen instantly straightened his back again, but he didn't dare to say anything. At this moment, a Bentley came quickly, and then stopped steadily in front of everyone. Everyone was stunned for a while after seeing this Bentley. David was also stunned for a moment. He didn't expect this guy Lin Tianhu to be waiting for him. And Wang Hanin immediately shouted happily after seeing this Bentley, "This is the car, brother David is here in this car." I saw that after the Bentley stopped, a young man in a suit walked down and walked in front of David, and said respectfully, "Mr. Chen, please get in the car." David smiled slightly. He didn't expect that this guy Lin Tianhu would send someone to pick him up. It seems that he knew that he was afraid that others would find out his relationship with him. After all, Lin Tianhu's reputation in Horondel was not very good. "Hanin, let's get in the car and eat the food stalls," David said lightly to Wang Hanin. Wang Hanin looked surprised and nodded happily. She had never ridden a Bentley before. When he got into the car, David deliberately rolled down the car window, looked at everyone with a bit of sneer on his face and said, "I'll go first." Soon, the Bentley vanished, leaving only Kui Ziwen and a group of people standing dumbfounded. "Damn, this kid is really sitting on a Bentley, this is too awesome, isn't this Bentley really his friend?" Everyone was amazed. "Humph, what's so awesome, isn't it just renting a Bentley?" Bah! Kui Ziwen spat fiercely, then got in the car and left. When everyone saw this, they also dispersed in a hurry, and went back to their respective homes. In Zion Hezwang's office, Xing Jun found Liao Fixiang with a bit of anger on his face. "Brother Xiang, I have always heard that the Along gang has strict rules and never misses what they promised. Why is that David still alive today and not injured at all?" Xing Jun questioned Liao Fixiang. In the face of Xing Jun's questioning, Liao Fixiang slowly got up, and immediately after walking into Xing Jun, he slapped Xing Jun's face fiercely, knocking Xing Jun directly to the ground. As soon as Xing Jun fell to the ground, the four big men put daggers on Xing Jun's neck, which scared Xing Jun a lot. "Paralyzed, you almost killed Lao Tzu, and you dare to ask Lao Tzu to ask the guilt. If it wasn't for your 1 million, Lao Tzu would throw you into the river to feed the fish today," Liao Fixiang roared loudly at Xing Jun. This time, Xing Jun was almost an idiot. He didn't understand what was wrong with Liao Fixiang and why he was so angry at him all of a sudden. "Brother Xiang, I don't dare to hurt you, but the thing is not done, you should give me the 1 million, you can't." Before Xing Jun's words were finished, a big man's dagger exerted a little force, and Xing Jun's neck bled instantly. "Why are you talking to Brother Xiang? Don't you know our rules? It's impossible to take out the money you have in your hands." The big man roared with a ferocious look on his face. This frightened Xing Jun. He felt the cold dagger on his neck, and he no longer dared to say a word, let alone ask for money. "Go away, today's matter, if I hear half a sentence in someone else's mouth, I will kill you," Liao Fixiang threatened Xing Jun. After all, although their business is not a serious business, it is also about credibility. If this is spread, who will find them to deal with things? If it wasn't for David this time, Liao Fixiang would not be like this. Xing Jun was thrown out, and the whole person seemed a little lost. The 1 million who has worked so hard is gone, but in the end, he didn't do anything to David, and he didn't even get injured. Xing Jun felt too bad. Xing Jun walked out of Zion Hezwang and shouted with all his strength, realizing his dissatisfaction. Yehua Street is a famous snack street in Horindal. During the daytime, it is difficult to see a single person here, but at night, it is very lively here, and there are food stalls on both sides of the road. David followed Wang Hanin to find a food stall and sat down. After ordering something he liked, he waited slowly. Because there are so many people, it takes a long time to wait. "Brother David, that Bentley was too comfortable to sit in just now, is that really your friend's?" Wang Hanin asked David excitedly. "Of course, what did I lie to you for? The one who just drove was my friend's driver," David is not lying. Although Lin Tianhu is David's subordinate, he is also a friend. "What business does your friend do?" "Too rich," Wang Hanin is very curious, what exactly does David's friend do? "I don't know, it's just some trade or something. He's still single, but he's a little older, or I'll introduce it to you. If Lin Tianhu is not too old, it is not impossible for David to introduce Lin Tianhu to Wang Hanin." "I don't want it, I want to find, and also find a brother David like you," Wang Hanin looked at David and said with love in his eyes. Seeing this, David hurriedly turned his face to the side, not daring to look into Wang Hanin's eyes. "The dishes are here, let's order beer." At this time, the ordered dishes came, and it was enough to save David, otherwise David really didn't know how to face Wang Hanin. Wang Hanin's thoughts towards him are so blatant that one can see it. "Okay, today we won't go home if we don't get drunk," Wang Hanin nodded happily. David ordered 2 cases of beer. After all, Wang Hanin could drink 1 case himself. The two chatted while drinking, talking about their childhood, when they were in their teens. David moved to Horindal with his mother from the countryside, and Wang Hanin's family lived in Horindal since he was a child. In the past, the community they lived in was okay, but with the rapid economic development, in just a few years, new high-rise buildings continued to rise, so David's community became old and broken. "Brother David, I remember when someone bullied me when I was a child, it was you who helped me get ahead. At that time, when I hid behind you, I felt very secure," Wang Hanin recalled his childhood and said with emotion. David just smiled and said nothing. "Brother David, I remember that you even took out a bird's egg for me, and was chased and beaten by Uncle Chen, and you even gave me the toffee at home." Wang Hanin has more and more memories, all because of David's kindness to her. At this moment, a girl with yellow hair, high heels and a one-step skirt suddenly sat in front of their table. "Hanin, what a coincidence, I didn't expect you to come here to eat food stalls," the yellow-haired girl patted Wang Hanin's shoulder and said. Wang Hanin looked up and immediately got up and said, "Wu Yifan, didn't you go abroad? When did you come back?" Wu Yifan smiled awkwardly, "Why go abroad? I have always been at home, and when I say going abroad, I lied to my parents, then what are you doing now?" Wang Hanin looked at Wu Yifan and asked. Wu Yifan was silent for a while, and then embarrassedly said, "I'm doing public relations." David looked at that Wu Yifan, and at first glance he guessed what Wu Yifan was doing, it must be that kind of unspeakable profession. Looking at Wu Yifan, Wang Hanin seemed to have guessed something, and fell silent for a while, not knowing what to say. "Who is this? Is that your boyfriend?" In order to ease the embarrassment, Wu Yifan looked at David and asked. "No, this is my brother David," Wang Hanin blushed when he heard this, and hurriedly explained. David got up, stretched out his hand towards Wu Yifan and said, "Hello, my name is David Chen." "Hello, my name is Wu Yifan." "Hanin and I are classmates and roommates." Wu Yifan followed David and shook hands. But looking at Wang Hanin's expression, Wu Yifan knew that this little girl must be liking David, but she just didn't make it clear. David invited Wu Yifan to sit down and eat together, but Wu Yifan was not polite. "Hanin, there is a class reunion tomorrow, will you go?" After Wu Yifan sat down, he asked Wang Hanin. "Classmates reunion? Who did it?" It has been 2 or 3 years since Wang Hanin and the others graduated, and they have not organized a class reunion yet. This time, the class reunion was suddenly held, and Wang Hanin felt a little surprised. "What? Did no one inform you?" Wu Yifan was taken aback. Wang Hanin shook his head. Wu Yifan sighed and said, "It's no wonder that I didn't notify you. It was Zhang Miao who did it. Now she's getting better with Lang Bing." Hearing the name Lang Bing, Wang Hanin's body suddenly trembled, and anger began to flash on his face. David looked at Wang Hanin's expression, so he asked Wu Yifan, "Who is Lang Bing?" Wu Yifan didn't answer David directly, but looked at Wang Hanin. She would only say it after Wang Hanin's permission. "Lang Bing is my former boyfriend." Wang Hanin answered by himself. "Is that the guy who cheated you out of money?" David knew that Wang Hanin was a dancer because he was cheated by his ex-boyfriend and took loan sharks to do that. Wang Hanin nodded. "Hanin, did Lang Bing deceive you for money?" Wu Yifan didn't know about it yet, so he said to Wu Yifan in surprise. After Wu Yifan heard this, he immediately said angrily, "I have long thought that this guy is not a good person, and that Zhang Miao, but we are still in a dormitory. She targeted you everywhere when she was in school, and now she is still walking with that Lang Bing. Together, it's obviously targeting you, just to let this scumbag Lang Bing treat that Zhang Miao well." That's all in the past. I don't want to have anything to do with that Lang Bing anymore. I won't go to the class reunion. Don't say you've seen me. Wang Hanan didn't want to go to the class reunion, and she didn't want Lang Bing to know that it was because of him that Wang Hanan didn't go. Since you decided not to go, then I won't go either. It's boring. The current alumni reunion is nothing more than a chance to show off to those students who are doing well. Wang Hanan doesn't want to go, and Wu Yifan doesn't want to go either. Hanan, why don't you take such an opportunity? Just let the scumbag see how well you are doing now, David persuaded Wang Hanan. Brother David. Wang Hanan looked at David suspiciously, not understanding what David meant. I'll accompany you tomorrow, just in time for a meal, David smiled faintly. Wang Hanan was surprised, but soon a happy smile appeared on his face. Hanan, your boyfriend is right, we'll all go there tomorrow and let that scumbag see how well you're doing now. Seeing this, Wu Yifan also persuaded Wang Hanan. This time, Wang Hanan did not follow Wu Yifan to explain, but nodded. But when David and the three of them were drinking and chatting, a man with a fat head and big ears with a golden chain came over and gave Wu Yifan a mouthful of words without saying a word. I'm from Malagobi, I paid you to call you out. I asked you to drink with me, not with others. I said how can I find you without a shadow for a long time? The fat-headed and big-eared man said cursingly. Seeing this, Wu Yifan hurriedly got up and said humbly, Brother Fat, I met a friend, so I chatted for a while, and I'll go with you right away. At this time, when Wang Hanan saw Wu Yifan being beaten, he stood up immediately, and said with a displeased face, How can you stretch out your hand and hit someone? What if you spend money, not sell it to you? Wang Hanan has worked as a dancer, so he knows what these people think, and if he spends some money to call them out, it becomes his personal property. When the fat-headed and big-eared man saw Wang Hanan dare to talk to him like this, his face immediately turned cold. Little girl, you are not small, dare to talk to me like this, I think you are quite a sign. How about sleeping with your brother for a night? It just so happens that you two are together, I'll take a double flight. The fat-headed and big-eared man said that he was about to do something to Wang Hanan, but he didn't take David sitting beside him at all. Brother Fat, this is a friend of mine. She is ignorant. I will accompany you tonight. I promise to make Brother Fat feel comfortable. Wu Yifan hurriedly stopped the fat-headed man and said. Now that the time has come, Wu Yifan is not afraid that Wang Hanan and David will know what they are doing. Go away, I just want to play Shuang Fei, you are stopping me. Believe it or not, I will kill you. The fat man with big ears pushed Wu Yifan away and said. Seeing this, Wang Hanan hurriedly supported Wu Yifan, and then glared at the fat man with big ears. She knew that the more frightened you were, the more frightened people looked at it, the more they would gain an inch, so Wang Hanan was not afraid at all. Little girl is a little brave. Seeing Wang Hanan staring at him, the man with the fat head and big ears grinned and grabbed at Wang Hanan. Snapped, wow! But when the fat-headed and big-eared man was grabbing towards Wang Hanan, suddenly a sitting David made a move, and a beer bottle smashed directly on the man's head. The blood flowed down the man's head in an instant, and the man suddenly hugged his head with his hands in pain, and squatted on the ground. When Wu Yifan saw that David actually did something to this fat-headed man, his face turned pale with fright. Fat brother, are you all right? Wu Yifan hurriedly helped the man up and asked. Fkook you, the fat-headed and big-eared man pushed Wu Yifan away, then glared at David and said, paralyzed, if you dare to beat me, you have eaten the guts of a bear and a leopard. I'm going to kill you today. Seeing that this guy still dared to scold, David immediately picked up another wine bottle, which scared the fat-headed man and ran out very far, and then shouted, "Wait for me, you kid, I'll call someone." Soon, the man with the fat head and big ears ran away, while David looked at Wang Hanan and Wu Yifan as if nothing was wrong and said, "Sit down, let's continue eating." "What else to eat? Hurry up and run, do you know who this guy is? He is covering the street this time, and there are more than a dozen people under his command. How can you do something to him? It's going to be troublesome now." Now, Wu Yifan's face is full of anxiety, like an ant on a hot pot. Where is he in the mood to eat? "Don't worry, we can just keep eating, don't be afraid of him," David smiled lightly. Seeing that David was not afraid at all, Wu Yifan looked at Wang Hanan strangely and asked, "Hanan, what does your boyfriend do? Does it have a lot of background?" After knowing the identity of the man, David was not afraid at all. In Wu Yifan's opinion, David must have a background, otherwise he would not be so indifferent. "We work together, we have been neighbors since we were teenagers, and we have no background," Wang Hanan frowned slightly. "Impossible, no background, why are you not afraid at all?" Wu Yifan didn't believe it. If it was an ordinary person, he would have been terrified when he heard the identity of the man. "I really don't have any background. Brother David, he just went to prison and just came out." From Wang Hanan's point of view, David's experience in prison should be considered a background. After all, ordinary people are somewhat afraid of seeing people who have been in prison. "No wonder, I used to stay there, and it looks like I know some people, but this fat guy is not just a gangster covering a street, he is a member of the Along gang, so I advise you to take Hanan with you." Wu Yifan persuaded David. Along gang. David felt a little interesting when he heard it. "Why do you always encounter people from the Along gang today? Why, are you afraid? The Along gang is the biggest gang in Horrendal. You know those 3 sects and 9 rates. It's impossible to protect you. You should take Hanan away now. I'll see if I can persuade one." "Persuade the fat brother, the big deal is that you don't want any money tonight," Wu Yifan intends to plead with the fat-headed man by himself. "Afraid?" David laughed, "The people of the Along gang are afraid of me, they will run away when they see me." "Afraid of you?" Wu Yifan glanced at David, and said angrily, "I'm not joking with you, if you want to pretend, you can do it yourself, but you can't implicate Hanan." Wu Yifan said, took Wang Hanan's hand and said, "Hanan, let's go, let him stay alone and pretend, look at what kind of boyfriend you are looking for." At first, David persuaded Wang Hanan to participate in the alumni reunion. Wu Yifan still had some good feelings for David, but at this time, his good feelings were gone. In her opinion, David was just a person who only pretended to be pushy. "Yifan, brother David is not the kind of person you said." Wang Hanan didn't want to leave, but was forced to leave by Wu Yifan. "Hanan, don't be stupid, you don't mix with the Tao, you don't know the power of the Along gang. In the whole Horrendal, there is no one who is not afraid of the Along gang. This David has been in prison for several years, I really don't know how high the sky is now." Wu Yifan holds Wang Hanan and doesn't let go. Just when Wu Yifan was pulling with Wang Hanan, a group of people suddenly gathered around, and the man who was leading was the fat man with big ears, and at this time the man's head was already bandaged. Seeing that man brought someone over, Wu Yifan turned pale with fright, and let go of Wang Hanan, feeling a little overwhelmed. Wang Hanan was horrified when he saw that there were so many people on the other side, and all of them were vicious. Only David is still sitting in the same place calmly. "Boy, you are so fucking good, you didn't even run, I'll let you know how good I am today," the fat-headed and big-eared man said, bent over and picked up a wine bottle and waved it towards David. Fat guy, seeing this, Wu Yifan hurriedly stepped forward to stop the fat-headed man. Fat brother, calm down, he has already regretted it just now, and when I told him about the fat brother's identity, he would have been scared to death, and the fat brother was watching. For my face, please spare him once, I will accompany the fat brother for a few nights for free, and let him pay some money to make amends for the fat brother. The man with the fat head and ears still wanted to hold back, but when he heard that the other party was willing to pay for the solution, he took back the wine bottle in his hand and asked Wu Yifan, how much can he pay? My head is nothing. Anyone can do it. Wu Yifan was stunned. How did she know how much David could pay? She could only look at David and asked, Brother Fat asked you, how much do you want to pay to solve this problem? I can tell you, if Brother Fat didn't look at my face, even if you pay, Brother Fat will ruin you. Wu Yifan frightened David, hoping that David would pay a little more money to send this man away and save himself the pain of flesh and blood. Seeing Wu Yifan touting himself like this, the fat man with big ears finally had a smile on his face. Is this number okay? David slowly stretched out a finger. You want to send me for $10,000? The fat-headed and bijard man said with a cold expression on his face. David, what do you think? If you beat the fat guy, you will pay 10,000 to send the beggars. Wu Yifan reprimanded David and winked desperately at David. I'm not talking about 10,000 yuan, David shook his head. 100,000 yuan is not much, said the fat-headed man. Wu Yifan was also in a bit of a dilemma at this time. 100,000 yuan is reasonably a lot. Looking at David like this, and he has just been released from prison, it is impossible to have much money. Fat brother, look at him like this, I feel that 100,000 is his limit. He was just released from prison, and he probably doesn't have much money on him. Wu Yifan is begging for David. Just got out of prison. The fat-headed and big-eared man was stunned for a moment. No wonder he is so ruthless and has a little courage. I don't care whether he has money or not, and if he wants to send me for 100,000, it is impossible. Seeing that the man didn't agree, Wu Yifan could only look at David again and said, You take more? No, I still have some on me, and I will lend it to you, but I can agree that you have to pay it back, and this money is my opinion. I only borrowed it for Hanin's face. I'm not talking about 100,000, David shook his head again. Seeing that David said it was not 100,000, Wu Yifan was stunned, but the fat-headed man had excitement on his face, but he still pretended to be cold and said, Did you mean 1,000,000? If you can make 1,000,000, I won't care about you, since you have also entered the game, I can let you mix with me, I'm talking about $1, David said, took out a coin from his pocket, and tossed it gently in his hand. Seeing David and paying himself $1, the man suddenly became angry. You dare to play with me, today I will kill you. Then Wu Yifan was also suddenly furious. David, what do you mean? I begged for mercy, but you didn't appreciate it, only offered $1, I don't care about you. Wu Yifan was pissed off by David. If it wasn't for Wang Hanin's sake, she wouldn't care about David. Wu Yifan dodged aside, and the fat man with big ears picked up a chair and smashed it towards David. This time, he brought more than a dozen people, but he was no longer afraid of David, and his attack was obviously a lot more ruthless, so he directly attacked him. But when the fat-headed and big-eared man smashed at David, David suddenly flicked the coin in his hand, and the coin hit the man's wrist like a bullet. A burst of severe pain came, and the man threw away the chair in his hand. Looking at his wrist, he was already bleeding. Hack him for me, the fat-headed man growled. Seeing this, a dozen people brought by the man took out their weapons and rushed towards David. Brother David, seeing this, Wang Hanin was so frightened that she screamed and wanted to protect David, but was held back by Wu Yifan. At this time, Wang Hanin's words in the past are also in vain to take his own life. Facing more than a dozen people, David was still sitting on the chair, without even moving. The expression on his face remained the same. It's just that he picked up a plate of peanuts on the table, then suddenly grabbed a handful, and threw it at the dozen people who rushed over. Seeing David throwing peanuts at him, all the dozens of people showed disdain on their faces, and no one didge. What damage can a peanut hit on the body do? But soon, these dozen people regretted it. Because they felt that the peanuts hit their bodies, as if they were hit by a bullet, their whole body shook suddenly, and then they fell to the ground one after another. There is blood flowing out. Seeing this scene, the fat-headed and big-eared man was stunned. His whole body seemed to have been immobilized, and he stared motionlessly at the mourning subordinates in front of him. What's going on? The fat-headed and big-eared man swallowed hard. She didn't answer him, because Wu Yifan was already stunned at this time. She didn't expect David to be so powerful. Wu Yifan instinctively turned her head to Wang Hanin. She hoped that Wang Hanin could explain to her well what happened to David. At this time, Wang Hanin was also stunned. She didn't even know that David had such ability. With just a handful of peanuts, he directly killed more than a dozen people, which was incredible. Are you still killing me? David asked indifferently, looking at the fat-headed man. The man's Adam's apple rolled and wanted to say something, but looking at David's indifferent expression, he couldn't say a word. After a while, the fat-headed and big-eared man woke up from the shock, and after trying his best to take 2 deep breaths, he said to David, "Boy, you really have 2 strokes, but you know who I am." "Human? I am a member of the Along Gang, and this trip to the street is also from the Along Gang. If you hit me now, you are following our entire Along Gang as an enemy. What about being an enemy of your Along Gang? If you have the ability, just use it." David couldn't help but sneer. The fat-headed and big-eared man's face flushed red, and finally he took out his mobile phone and dialed a number. Although I don't know who he is calling, everyone knows that the fat-headed man must be calling for a helper. Soon, after hanging up the phone, the fat-headed and big-eared man showed a hint of pride on his face. "Boy, wait to die, this time Brother Xiang comes in person. Even if you have 100, don't even think about leaving alive." This man called Liao Fixiang, and now Feng Sihai has left the Along Gang and left everything to Liao Fixiang to take care of it, so now there is a problem, he can only call Liao Fixiang. Hearing the words of Brother Xiang, David laughed. He just came out of Liao Fixiang's office, but he didn't expect to meet again soon. "Okay, I'll wait and see. How can the bear brother you mentioned make me die?" David said with disdain. On the other side, Wu Yifan heard the words of Brother Xiang, his face turned green, he hurriedly winked at Wang Hanin, and then whispered in Wang Hanin's ear, "Hanin, please persuade David, let's go. Don't think that if you have 2 strokes, you are not afraid of anyone. Let me tell you, this Brother Xiang is the right-hand man next to Feng Sihai, the leader of the Along Gang. He is very capable of fighting, and he is ruthless." Hearing this, Wang Hanin was also quite frightened, nodded slightly, then walked to David's side, and said softly, "Brother David, let's go, it's too late." Wang Hanin didn't follow David to tell the truth about Brother Xiang's greatness, because she knew that David's heart had already swelled to the extreme at this time. If she said this, David would not leave. David looked at Wu Yifan, then looked at Wang Hanin and said, "Hanin, You and Wu Yifan go first, I'll go home in a while." Seeing that David didn't leave, Wang Hanan was very anxious, so he could only say truthfully, "Brother David, Yifan just said that Brother Xiang is very powerful, we should not provoke him, it's okay, I'm not afraid." David smiled slightly. Seeing that David didn't listen to his advice, Wu Yifan could only reprimanded loudly, "Don't think that you are invincible if you have 2 strokes, this Brother Xiang is the right-hand man of the Along gang, and he is very capable of fighting. That's it, it is estimated that 2 or 3 if you can't beat him, do you still dare to stay?" "What's not to dare?" David's face didn't matter. Wu Yifan was going to be so mad that he could only pull Wang Hanan away, desperately pulling her away. "Hanan, let's go, really leave him alone, now he has provoked the Along gang. It's definitely impossible to see the sun tomorrow, we die with him, it's not worth it." Wang Hanan was dragged away by Wu Yifan. Although the fat-headed and big-eared man did not want Wu Yifan and Wang Hanan to leave, Liao Fixiang had not arrived yet, so he did not dare to make a sound, so as not to be beaten by David. Not long after Wu Yifan pulled Wang Hanan away, he saw several cars approaching at high speed, and then stopped in front of the food stall. When the food stall owner saw this, he was so frightened that he hid in the house, and the people around him who were eating and watching the fun all dispersed at this time. They all know Liao Fixiang's reputation, and no one dares to provoke such a person, or even lose his life. When the fat-headed man saw this, he hurried over and respectfully opened the door of the first car. Liao Fixiang walked out of the car with a cigar in his mouth, and the people who were looking at him were full of envy. "Brother Xiang," seeing Liao Fixiang, the fat-headed and big-eared man shouted hurriedly, with endless grievances on his face. "Fat boy, look at you, what a shame for the Along gang." Liao Fixiang frowned as he looked at the fat-headed and big-eared man, "Where is the troublemaker?" "Brother Xiang, just sitting there," the man pointed at David and said. Liao Fixiang looked in the direction of his fingers, and when he saw that it was David sitting, Liao Fixiang shook slightly, and the cigar in his mouth fell to the ground. Seeing Liao Fixiang's gaffe, the fat-headed and big-eared man looked confused, and hurriedly picked up the cigar and said, "Brother Xiang, this guy is only one person, but he has some skills. All my subordinates have been beaten." Liao Fixiang was so angry, he really wanted to scold the fat boy. David has some skills here. He is obviously very powerful. Even Feng Sihai was defeated by one kick. Who can be David's opponent in the whole Horndal? Brother Xiang. David looked at Liao Fixiang at this moment with a playful expression on his face. "We are really destined to meet again." Hearing this, Liao Fixiang hurriedly changed into a smiling face and walked up. "Mr. Chen is joking, it's because I have no way to discipline me." This time, the fat-headed and big-eared man was dumbfounded. He stared at the flattering Liao Fixiang, not understanding what happened. "Your subordinates are very good. You said that I have 100 lives, and I can't do without here tonight." The corner of David's mouth raised slightly and said, "How is it possible, Mr. Chen's ability, who can stop Horndal?" Liao Fixiang smiled awkwardly, then looked at the fat man with big ears and said, "Fat boy, get over here." The fat-headed and big-eared man had a confused look on his face, so he could only walk over slowly. "Don't kneel down for me and apologize to Mr. Chen." Liao Fixiang kicked the man fiercely. Pfft! The fat-headed and big-eared man knelt down in front of David at once. "Okay, don't come with me. Before you help find his master, I won't touch you, unless you don't provoke me with eyes." David knew that Liao Fixiang was just pretending in front of him to give him face. David injured Feng Sihai, and this hatred was formed with the Along gang. It is impossible for Liao Fixiang to truly respect himself. After David finished speaking, he got up and left. Liao Fixiang looked at David's back with a cold glow in his eyes. Bear, Brother Xiang, this person is. Watching David leave, the fat-headed and big-eared man stood up and asked Liao Fixiang with a puzzled face. Snapped. Liao Fixiang slapped the fat man with big ears in the face. I tell you, if you see him in the future, hide away from me. Our helper was injured by him. If you can live today, just burn incense. After Liao Fixiang finished speaking, he also took people away. In the end, only the fat-headed and big-eared man was left standing where he was in horror. In the community, Wang Hanin was anxiously waiting for David at the door. Wu Yifan sent Wang Hanin back and left. Hanin, if you don't go home, who are you waiting for? Seeing that Wang Hanin was back, Wang Chongfeng didn't even go home, so she asked. Mom, go home first, I'll be waiting for Brother David. Wang Hanin said with a bit of anxiety on his face. What happened to David? Didn't you come back together? Seeing Wang Hanin's anxious look, Wang Chongfeng asked hurriedly. Wang Hanin was stunned, not knowing how to explain it to his mother. Hanin, where's David? Didn't you come back with you? At this time, Barbara and Chen Baoqiu also came. Seeing Barbara and Chen Baoqiu, Wang Hanin was afraid that the two would be worried, so he hurriedly said, Brother David has something to do, he may not be back until later. This kid doesn't know what he's busy with, he's already off work, how can he have so many things to do? Barbara muttered. Aunt Chen, go back first, I'll just wait for Brother David here. Wang Hanin wants Barbara to follow Chen Baoqiu. After all, when will David come back? Maybe he can come back. I wanted to give you a surprise, David, the child, hasn't come back so late, Barbara said with a sigh. Surprise? Wang Hanin was taken aback. Seeing this, Wang Chongfeng hurriedly explained, your Uncle Chen saw that you and your brother David were both at work, and it was inconvenient to take the bus back and forth, so I bought a car and let you drive on the way to work. I wanted to surprise you, Brother David. He hasn't come back yet, Aunt Wang, you have money in this car too. It was bought by our family for our two children, Barbara said quickly. Forget it, I just added a few thousand yuan, and the rest of the money is not from you. Wang Chongfeng laughed. This is a scooter for two people. When their jobs are stable, let them buy it themselves. We are all old and we can only help here. Chen Baoqiu also spoke at this time. No, the days to come will depend on the two of them. Wang Chongfeng nodded. Listening to the chat of several people, Wang Hanin's face instantly turned red, and the elders of the two families had already recognized her and David's affairs. Wang Hanin didn't have any objection in her heart. Following David's contact during this period, she also found that she gradually fell in love with David. It's just David's attitude, Wang Hanin doesn't know, and she can't guess David. You are so late, what are you talking about at the door? At this moment, David walked over with a smile on his face. Brother David, seeing David coming back, Wang Hanin hurried over and looked at David with concern to see if David was injured. When Wang Chongfeng and Chen Baoqiu saw Wang Hanin following David, they both laughed. Only Barbara sighed, it would be great if I could see two children get married. When David heard it, he wanted to explain to his parents that he just treated Wang Hanin as his sister, but seeing the hot eyes of the two adults, he didn't know how to speak. Mom, don't worry, I will find a way to cure your eyes, David didn't explain, he just said lightly. I'm used to it. Leave me alone. You two are working hard, and you will be rich in the future. You are buying a wedding house and buying a car. Your dad and I probably won't be able to help you anymore. Barbara said with some remorse. After all, David is not married yet, but their parents have no ability to help. I feel very guilty. Barbara, don't be like this, it's all right for the two children to live well, anyway, my family doesn't want anything. Wang Chongfeng patted Barbara on the shoulder. David listened, and his heart felt uncomfortable for a while. He really didn't know how to open his mouth. Brother David, Uncle Chen bought you a car, we can drive to work tomorrow. Wang Hanin said to David that she did this to interrupt the conversation of the elders. After all, she and David had not even established a relationship. It was too early to talk about their marriage. David, your dad has been running all day today. Although the car he bought for you is not a good car, it is better than taking the bus to work, Wang Chongfeng also said to David. When the group walked downstairs, David and Wang Hanin saw that there was a silver-white Chang'an sedan parked in the parking space downstairs, but at first glance it was not a new car. David, this is a second-hand Chang'an. Although it is second-hand, it has few kilometers. It is still a first-hand car. The car is in good condition. I will buy it for you for more than 40,000. Don't blame me. Dad is nothing. Chen Baoqiu followed David apologetically. David listened to Chen Baoqiu's words, and his eyes suddenly became wet. Dad, this car is very good, I can make money now, you don't have to worry about it. Well, I can feel relieved to see you go to work with peace of mind. As long as you work hard, everything will happen in the future. Chen Baoqiu nodded and encouraged David. David wanted to go to work for a few days, but he made an excuse for not going to work, because work affected his cultivation too much, but now he doesn't dare to think about not going to work, so he can only go to work temporarily to stabilize his parents' emotions. The next day, when David drove a second-hand Chang'an to the company, he was ridiculed by a group of people, but David didn't care. And Wang Hanin also turned a deaf ear to everyone's words. At this moment, she was very happy in her heart. She could sit in the co-pilot every day and go to work with David. After get off work, she was happy. David, you must come up with today's accounts, or else you'll get out of my way. Not long after going to work, Kui Ziwen found David and ordered. What happened last night, David, who Kui Ziwen hated so much, beat himself up in public and humiliated himself. Kui Ziwen couldn't just let it go. David looked at Kui Ziwen coldly, but ignored him, but Wang Hanin was a little anxious. Manager Kui, with so many accounts, how could brother David ask for it in one day? Isn't that embarrassing him? David did not speak, but Wang Hanin complained for David. What? You also want to go with him to ask for the account? If so, you go to a group with him. If you can't finish it today, don't do it all. Seeing that Wang Hanin dared to question himself, Kui Ziwen said with a cold face. Manager Kui, I choose to transfer the team. At this time, Zhang Tongjian hurriedly raised his hand and said. He could see that Kui Ziwen was targeting David, and David was very disrespectful to Xing Jun yesterday. He felt that he would be dragged down by David sooner or later. All right, let Wang Hanin follow you. Kui Ziwen nodded. This time, Sun Xiaomeng looked at it and didn't speak for Wang Hanin. After all, David beat Kui Ziwen yesterday, which made her very unhappy, especially when David dared to offend Xing Jun. This is an act of courting death. Kui Ziwen returned to the office, while Zhang Tongjian hurriedly cleaned up and moved away the things on his desk like he was dodging the plague. Looking at Zhang Tongjian like that, David smiled coldly. He originally felt that Zhang Tongjian was a pretty good guy, but he wanted to reuse him in the future. Managed. But now, David has no such idea. Maybe this is the so-called workplace. When facing conflicts of interest, he will save himself. Brother David, what should I do? Wang Hanin looked at David helplessly. Their parents are happy that they can find such a good job, but if they are fired, how will their parents explain it? Don't worry, those accounts will be credited to the company's accounts soon, David comforted Wang Hanin. Even so, Wang Hanin doesn't quite believe that those companies that owe their debts, how could they take the initiative to repay the money, unless those bosses are sick? Hanin, why do you say you are so troubled? It's over, even you are afraid that you will be expelled. With your conditions, what kind of boyfriend can't be found, you will share with David, sister will give you find a rich second generation, Wang Lanlin leaned over and said to Wang Hanin. Wang Hanin didn't speak, just shook her head. Even if she was fired, she would not be separated from David. Silly girl, seeing this, Wang Lanlin could only helplessly smile. Sonia may have persuaded Wang Hanin originally, but looking at this situation, she feels that it is unnecessary. She knows that David and Wang Hanin are going to work today, the last day. It was just 2 days ago that I was fired directly. This is probably the first case in the company. No, I have never seen such a crazy employee, even the manager dared to fight. He deserves it, what is he pretending to do? He really has the ability, will he come here to work? Others in the sales department were talking about David. Just as everyone was talking about it, suddenly people from the finance department came in a hurry. Xiao Sun, why did you come to our sales department? Is there something wrong with the accounts? Seeing people from the finance department coming, Sun Xiaomeng stepped forward and asked. Sister Xiaomeng, your sales department is too good. As soon as you go to work today, all the debts from outside have been credited to the company's account. Now there is no company that owes money. Who is in charge of your sales department? It's amazing. Died, Financial Xiao Sun excitedly followed Sun Xiaomeng and said. What? Are all the debts back? Sun Xiaomeng was stunned. And the rest of the sales department got up one after another, looking at the financial little grandson with an incredible look. Xiao Sun, are you right? Are you really paying all the debts? Wang Lanlin also asked incredulously. Don't you know what I've lied to you about? Your sales department has been chasing the arrears all the time. Wouldn't you know who got it back? Finance Xiao Sun looked at Sun Xiaomeng and Wang Lanlin curiously. Oh, I know, of course our manager came forward to chase it back. Sun Xiaomeng suddenly reacted and said hurriedly. This kind of good thing, of course, must be placed on Kui Ziwen's head. Maybe this time, Kui Ziwen will be promoted to become the manager of the purchasing department. Manager Kui is really capable. Xiao Sun smiled slightly, I won't talk to you anymore, I'm going to check the accounts with Manager Kui. Xiao Sun walked into Kui Ziwen's office, and everyone in the sales department was in a frenzy. Damn it, who is this arrogant? All the accounts are going to come up. It's too good. You have to know a lot of accounts, but they are all from a few years ago. It's very difficult to get. Could it be that David? Seeing how confident he is today, he seems to know that the debt will be returned. Take it down, he can bring all these accounts up like that? Didn't I hear that all companies took the initiative to pay them back? It has a F.art relationship with him. Speaking of which, David is so damn lucky, it looks like he won't be fired today. The people from the sales department gathered around to discuss. Brother David, that's great, we won't be fired. Wang Hanin asked David excitedly. Didn't I tell you long ago, don't worry. David smiled. How did you know that the arrears will come back today? Wang Hanin looked at David strangely and asked. Secret? David smiled and didn't tell Wang Hanin. There are some things he doesn't want Wang Hanin to know, but sooner or later he will follow Wang Hanin to confess. Just when the people in the sales department were talking, Kui Ziwen came out with Xiao Sun in finance, and when he saw Kui Ziwen coming out, everyone stopped talking. Kui Ziwen gave David a cold look, and then left. At this time, in the office of the general manager of the company, Xing Jun sat behind the desk with a gloomy face. Xing Jun still had a band-aid on his neck. His neck was cut last night, and 5 faint handprints could still be seen on his face. Dong dong dong. There was a knock on the door, and Xing Jun said coldly, "Come in." "Mr. Xing, you are looking for me?" As soon as he entered the door, Kui Ziwen asked respectfully. It's just that Kui Ziwen was stunned as soon as the words fell, because he saw that there were a few faint red marks on Du Xingjun's face, which was obviously slapped. Seeing Kui Ziwen staring at him like this, Xing Jun frowned slightly. Does it look good? When Kui Ziwen heard this, his whole body trembled with fright, and he hurriedly lowered his head and did not dare to make a sound. The accounts of the sales department, you asked that David for? Xing Jun asked. Kui Ziwen didn't know what Xing Jun meant, so he could only nod his head. Yes, I just want him to hit the wall and kill his spirit, but I don't want this kid to be so lucky. The companies that owe their debts today turned their money away. It's all back, Xing Jun smiled coldly. He knew why these arrears were suddenly repaid. It must have been Sonia's help behind the scenes. However, in the company, only Xing Jun knows the relationship between David and Sonia. In the future, I will let David talk about the contract with Tianmei Daily Chemical. Xing Jun looked at some of the partner information in his hand and said to Kui Ziwen. Tianmei. Kui Ziwen was stunned. Mr. Xing, Tianmei is a big customer, and the Xiao family has always been staring at this customer and asked David to talk. Will this disgust Tianmei and think that we are not sincere? Kui Ziwen did not understand why Xing Jun gave such an important customer to David. You must know that when such a customer signs a contract, the commission they get from sales is sky high. What? Are you questioning my decision? Xing Jun's eyes narrowed slightly. Don't dare, everything is subject to President Xing's arrangement. How could Kui Ziwen dare to disobey Xing Jun? After all, he is his immediate boss. When Kui Ziwen left, Xing Jun slowly picked up the phone and dialed a number. Young Master Xiao, things are arranged. Tianmei's contract, I will shoot David to discuss. Ha ha ha, you did a good job. Cooperate with me well. What the Sui family can give you, I will give you double. There was a burst of wanton laughter on the other side of the phone, and then hung up the phone. Xing Jun's phone number was dialed to Jordan. Xing Jun knew that David was following Jordan's holiday, and also knew that David's girlfriend was occupied by Jordan. In Horindal, the Xiao family and the Sui family are of equal strength, and the two are also competitors. The Xiao family once poached Xing Jun with a high salary, but Xing Jun likes Sonia and always wanted to get along with Sonia, so he rejected the Xiao family. But after last night, Xing Jun failed to hire a murderer to kill David, and he was slapped in the face, which made Xing Jun more and more angry, so he got in touch with Jordan. The reason why David went to discuss the contract with Tianmei was Jordan's idea. Jordan just wanted to humiliate David. How could a big customer like Tianmei, a small salesperson of David, talk about it? Jordan went in person and humiliated David. In Horrendal's hospital ward, Jordan is still recovering from his injuries. "Brother Lay, I'll make you happy. That guy David is not worth your attention. To you, he's just an ant. Without Sonia to protect him, he'd be a piece of SHT." Delia looked at Jordan, who was sitting on the hospital bed, and said happily, "Break my arm, of course I want to play with him, I want to slowly kill him." The corner of Jordan's mouth was slightly raised, and his eyes were full of chills. "Brother Lay, that guy David can hit him twice, you can't beat him, and the Lintian who you are looking for is not reliable. If you want to deal with David, I think you should find some other experts," Delia suggested. "Don't worry, I have already sent someone to contact the Along gang. In the entire Horrendal, Lin Tianhu is not the only Juyi Hall. The Along gang is as famous as the Juyi Hall, and it is more than enough to deal with a David." Jordan knew that he couldn't beat David, and the Lin Tianhu he was looking for was useless, so he found someone to contact the Along gang again. Although the Xiao family is very powerful in Horrendal, it is a business family after all, so they are not familiar with gang forces like the Along gang, and they need to find a middleman to introduce it. "Brother Lay, when the contract is negotiated, I will also go. I want to see David's shabby appearance. Some time ago, he was so arrogant with the support of Sonia. Now I want to see if he can be arrogant." When Delia remembered how she was humiliated by David some time ago, she was so angry that she died. "No problem, just watch him get trampled under my feet," Jordan smiled proudly. In the sales department, Kui Ziwen was very puzzled why Xing Jun gave David such an important customer, but Xing Jun said, he had to do it. "David, you are lucky, all the debts you owe are suddenly paid back, but as a qualified salesperson, you must not only be able to collect accounts, but also be able to negotiate contracts, so you must learn to negotiate contracts and follow the regulations." "You, don't talk nonsense, say something directly," David said to Kui Ziwen impatiently. It is estimated that only David himself is the one who follows Kui Ziwen to talk like this. Hearing David's phone call, Kui Ziwen was angry, and he almost vomited blood, but he didn't dare to fire David for no reason, because he didn't know what Xing Jun was thinking. "The company decided to let you follow Tianmei Daily Chemical to discuss cooperation matters. You must know that Tianmei Daily Chemical is also the largest cosmetics industry company in Horrendal. If you can negotiate, the commission will naturally be an unexpected figure, but if you talk about it, then..." "Stop talking nonsense, give me the information." David looked impatient. This Kui Ziwen said so much nonsense. In fact, he was not jealous of himself, he wanted to embarrass himself. Kui Ziwen's face was cold, and he directly threw the information to David. "Humph, this time I will definitely find a way to expel you to make you so arrogant." Kui Ziwen gritted his teeth, thinking secretly in his heart. "Kui Ziwen, what do you mean? I've been talking about Mei Ke all day. Do you know how long I've been with me? Why did you give it to him suddenly?" At this moment, Sun Xiaomeng became anxious and shouted directly at Kui Ziwen. "Everyone knows that Tianmei is a big customer. If they can negotiate, the commission must be very large, so Kui Ziwen gave this Tianmei to Sun Xiaomeng at the beginning. After all, no one in the sales department dared to say anything about his relationship with Sun Xiaomeng. And for this client, Kui Ziwen accompanied Sun Xiaomeng many times, and Sun Xiaomeng has been working hard. But at this time, he suddenly gave the client to David. How could Sun Xiaomeng not get angry? Kui Ziwen pulled Sun Xiaomeng and said to Sun Xiaomeng, "Don't make trouble, I'll explain to you later." After he finished speaking, Kui Ziwen looked at David and said, David, this customer is our company's most important customer, so you have to hurry up and set a time. When can we talk about it? Tomorrow. David wanted to talk about the afternoon, but he thought that he would have to inform Lin Tianhu to check in advance, so he said tomorrow. Tomorrow. Kui Ziwen was taken aback. Everyone in the sales department was stunned, looking at David in disbelief. David, are you out of your mind? This is Tianmei Daily Chemical. You said you can negotiate the contract tomorrow. Wang Lanlin sneered and laughed, and said with contempt. David, can you stop bragging? Do you know how long I've been with this client? It's been 3 months, and I haven't been able to talk about it for 3 months. You can talk about it tomorrow. Sun Xiaomeng looked at David angrily. David said this, she was simply humiliating her. I haven't talked about it for 3 months, and David actually said that he can do it in 1 day. Isn't this laughing at his incompetence? Seeing David like that, Kui Ziwen sneered, David, this is what you said. If you can't talk about it, you'd better get out of your way. Don't talk big in our sales department. No problem. David happily agreed. This time, Kui Ziwen was very happy. He knew that David would definitely not be able to negotiate the contract tomorrow. If it was so easy, he would not have accompanied Sun Xiaomeng for 3 months. With the Xiao family watching, how could it be so easy to talk about it? Kui Ziwen pulled Sun Xiaomeng into the office to explain, while the others in the sales department gave David a disdainful look, and they all dispersed. When David got the information, he didn't read it, but sent it to Lin Tianhu, but Wang Hanin became nervous and spent the whole day studying Tianmei's information. Hanin, you have a class reunion tonight, and it's almost time to get off work now. Get ready first, don't look at that information. Seeing Wang Hanin's anxious face, David continued to study Tianmei's information, so he persuaded him. Brother David, it's too difficult to deal with the beauty of daily chemicals today. The general manager of Tianmei is a person who can't make money. What are we going to talk about tomorrow? Where is Wang Hanin still thinking about participating in the class reunion? If there is no way to negotiate a contract tomorrow, David will be fired. If David leaves, Wang Hanin himself does not want to stay. Don't you believe me? David looked at Wang Hanin. If I say I can definitely do it, don't worry. Wang Hanin looked at David's firm eyes, and finally nodded, I believe it. David smiled slightly, patted Wang Hanin's head gently, his eyes showed the kind of doting like a brother and a sister. Just after get off work, Wang Hanin received a call from Wu Yifan, urging her to hurry up. Many classmates arrived. Wang Hanin inquired about the address, and the class reunion turned out to be at the Regal Hotel. This made Wang Hanin a little hesitant, because this class reunion is AA system, choosing such a luxurious hotel, the cost is definitely not small, she doesn't want to spend this money, it feels too wasteful. However, after David's persuasion, Wang Hanin agreed to go. The two of them drove the second-hand Chang'an and went straight to the Regal Hotel. As soon as the two arrived at the door of the Regal Hotel, they saw that Wu Yifan was already waiting anxiously at the door. When Wu Yifan saw David, she was a little surprised. She felt that David offended the Along gang last night and would definitely be beaten to death. Looking at David, there is nothing at all. You didn't get beaten last night? Wu Yifan asked suspiciously. Didn't I tell you, the Along gang are afraid of me, how dare they hit me? David smiled slightly. Just blow it. Wu Yifan rolled her eyes. She didn't believe what David said. How could a gang as big as the Along gang be afraid of David? It must have been solved by David, perhaps by spending money. Believe it or not. David didn't explain any more. Today's Hanin class reunion, you will drive to Chang'an? If you don't have a good car, it is better to take a taxi than to drive a broken Chang'an. Look at the parking lot here, is there such a broken car? Wu Yifan reprimanded David angrily. At that time, David encouraged Wang Hanin to come to the class reunion. Wu Yifan thought that David would find a way to give Wang Hanin a face at the class reunion, but now he is driving a broken Chang'an. What happened to Chang'an? Support domestic production, David didn't care at all. Wang Hanin also hurriedly said, I think this car is very good, it is more comfortable than the bus, let's get in. Seeing that Wang Hanin also said the same, Wu Yifan did not continue to reprimand David, and the three walked into the hotel together. In a luxurious private room, there were already more than a dozen sitting, men and women, chatting and laughing very lively. One of the men with a partial score and a gold watch on his hand is particularly eye-catching. Almost everyone is centered on this man, constantly talking and touting. This man is Lang Bing, Wang Hanin's ex-boyfriend, although he did not follow Wang Hanin and the others, but Lang Bing attended this class reunion as Zhang Miao's boyfriend. Miao Miao, you are so lucky to have found such a good boyfriend. You must know that Brother Bing used to be at school, that's school grass. No, when I first entered the school, Brother Bing was all-powerful in the school. I had a crush on Brother Bing at that time. Look at this watch brought by Brother Bing, it is estimated to cost hundreds of thousands, this is the successful person. Brother Bing is now running his own company, he's so cool, everyone touted Lang Bing and that Zhang Miao, and they were all fluttering about what they said. It's just a meal, what a successful person, this watch is not worth much, and it was only more than 300,000 when I asked a friend to bring it back from Switzerland. Although Lang Bing is modest in his mouth, his tone of speech is obviously showing off. In fact, when Lang Bing said this, who could not hear what he meant by showing off, but who would dare to say it at this time? Can only make cold Versailles once. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description, rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.